Hey everybody, welcome. This is Pete Meyer, Motor Age Magazine. Actually, Vehicle Service Pros, I should say, Director of Training. And that all includes Motor Age Magazine, Aftermarket Business World, ABRN, our Collision Repair Magazine, of course, PTEN, and Professional Distributor. We got the whole market covered. And in each of those market segments are shop owners and business owners. And I think one thing that owners tend to fail to consider is what are they going to do when it's time to move on? What is your succession plan? And to answer that question and help guide you along that path, I have a very special guest with me today. Let me bring him in there. I'd like you to meet Bryan Stasch. He is the Vice President, make sure I get that right, Program and Content Development with the Automotive Training Institute. Of course, Bryan has been with them for quite a while. Many of you already know him. And he's going to help guide us in today's topic. What's your end game? You know, what you need to do to plan for your business succession. So, Bryan, thank you so much for joining me today.
Well, Pete, thank you for having me. And trust me, this is my pleasure, sir.
All right. So I'm going to go ahead and switch a few buttons around and give Bryan the floor and get out of his way. And, Bryan, it's all yours.
Thank you, Peter, and welcome, everybody. I'm hoping I got a great topic for you. And as Pete said, this is something that most business owners, at least the shop owners I've been working with for a long time, typically don't think about until it's time. And today's topic is about succession planning and what's your end game. And some of the items I'd like to share with you today on this topic is, what are your options? What options do you really have as far as a planned exit of your business? But I also want you to keep this in mind as we go through. Not only does this apply to planned exits, but these are kind of things that we feel are very, very important to get a business ready for any potential unplanned exits. And I think you know the difference, either a planned exit or an unplanned exit. We'll talk about getting the financials ready and the documents you're going to need for this. We'll talk about shoring up the future. And when I talk about shoring up the future, I'm talking about making sure everything is going to be okay when you decide to exit the business. We're going to talk about shifts in business and what does this or how does this apply? And shifts in business are exactly what it sounds like. The ups and downs in business, the trends, upwards or down. And what did you do, or what are you going to do to get out of a down? And unfortunately, fortunately, this would probably be more for a planned exit when I'm looking to perhaps sell my business, because smart business buyers are really looking at the P&Ls, they're looking at the sales, they're looking at your numbers. And if they are up or down, they're just not on that steady trend, they're going to want to know why. And we're going to talk about, what are you really selling? What are you really selling? What do you have to sell? And we're going to talk briefly about the right fit. But to get started, let's talk about your options. And when it comes to options of exiting a business, a planned exit that is, you have a few. First, liquidation. 2, keep the business and run with a second in command. 3, keep the business in the family and run by a family member. 4, sell to a manager or employees. Sell the business in the open market, or sell to another business. Now let's talk briefly about each one of these. First, we have liquidation. And for how many of you does that term liquidation sound sexy? I didn't think so. Now with liquidation, this is a last resort. This is when there's not a lot of business value. This happens when with unplanned exits. And what I mean about an unplanned exit is, unfortunately, that owner, the primary leader of the business, is gone. Unplanned. And over the last year and a half, of course, we've seen a few of these, which I really don't like to talk about. But for this exercise, I have to. being that your average shop owner today, whether it's on the mechanical side or the collision side, is either a boomer or a Gen Xer. And in either case, we are not in our prime. And as dudes, we are not good at going to the doctors and getting checked up. Thus, heart attacks, other issues, death. As much as that, or as bad as that is to sound, but that happens. And at ATI, with the amount of numbers we have, we hear that quite often, especially here as of late with COVID. And the business was not built for speed. Unfortunately, it's in a position where it's now liquidation. Sell whatever you can for whatever you can. For this exercise, it is the most simplistic. It's easy to do. It gives you the lowest return on your investment. But unfortunately, depending on the position of the business, you have other people in line for that money, and it's usually creditors. So you see what I mean about liquidation? It just does not sound very sexy. Now, briefly about keep the business and run with the second in command. This is the most common route that I see today, or actually over the last 6-7 years, of our members, whether it's on the mechanical side or the collision side of the business, decide to run or keep the business and run it with the second in command. The benefits of keeping the business and run with the second in command is it's typically a very smooth transition because you have time to groom that second in command after you determine whether you have the right one, but you have time to groom that person to get the business ready to run without you. Please take note of that, because really what succession planning is all about is getting your business ready to run without you. Again, smooth transition by grooming. It allows you to keep your hands still in the business and do a lot less than you do today. I do promise you this, you will make more money over a period of time, 5, 7, 10 years, depending on whatever type of a buyout you might have with the second in command or what your goals look like. You'll probably make more money over time than you would if you chose to sell the business. You can keep the business and run by a family member. Same as like second in command, you do have time to groom that person. And it again allows you to keep your hands in the business and you will make more money over time, just like that second in command. But unfortunately, family members may not have the skills or the interest in running the family business, running the shop. And again, unfortunately, being somebody that your customers may have never met before, customers may not approve of new management. You can sell the business to a manager or key employees or both. Now, what we've seen is when this gets turned over to new blood, as in the manager or employees that have been part of you and very, very familiar with the operation, we have really seen businesses take off. We've watched those businesses thrive because of new enthusiasm, as in that potential manager or the manager or employees as potential owners. Trust me, new enthusiasm. They have new blood, new life after going after this because now they're a business owner. So we've watched them thrive. Again, worked very, very well with some of the long-term buyouts. Assets and goodwill create value, unlike liquidation. But unfortunately, and I hope this is not in your case, that not all manager or employees are qualified or have the right business head to run a business. And again, similar to having a new face at that front counter, a new face in charge, as in with the family business, customers may not approve of management. Now, of course, you can sell the business in an open market. And that's what a lot think they're going to do when they decide to sell their business or when they think about succession planning or think about getting out. And a profitable business should attract buyers and sell very, very quickly. And assets and goodwill create value. However, low profitability make this hard to sell. And unfortunately, the sale price is much lower than expected. I'm not sure how many of you were familiar with how they value a business in our world these days. And of course, you can sell it to another business. Now, I'm not going to dig into what that looks like, but you could guess that typically who buys other businesses like yours is typically another shop dude or dudette. And when they buy your business, very quickly, they want to turn it into their business. So it's no longer resembles your business. Now, my heart of hearts says that all of you on this screen watching this today that have been driving your business for 15, 20, 25, or 30 years really will care what happens to that business even after you're gone. Why? Because it's your baby. You built it. And unfortunately, selling to another business, things are going to change. So, how do you really decide what is best for you? And I have a 3-step process for this. And I'd love to tell you this was mine, but I utilized or relied on somebody much smarter than Bryan. And I'm not a guy that typically reads things like Harvard Business Review, but while doing homework on succession planning, while putting all this together, I did dig into that a little bit to see what this looks like. And they suggest a 3-step process, and it looks like this. Number 1, identify your most important objective, value your business or its marketability, and 3, evaluate the tax consequences. So what does that mean? Number 1, identify your most important objectives. And there'd be 3 I'd be thinking about. You have a financial objective, as in how much money are you going to need from the sale of my business to assure financial security in retirement? Or how much of the money am I going to need from the sale of my business to take off on other business ventures? And again, taking off on other business ventures, good succession plan will allow you to do that, not just sell the business. And then, of course, we have some with non-financial objectives, as in they want the business to stay in the family or they want to stay involved. But there are times where you'd have some internal and external considerations that may also help you make this decision, as in trusting the company to others. I've talked to many business owners over the years that chose to sell to internal employees, to sell to managers or technicians, because they didn't trust somebody else to run that business. They wanted to make sure somebody that was familiar with it continued to run it. Or in situations where, I don't want to say the term weak business, we'll just go with not as profitable as it could be, or a weak market. Those 2 things there may also help you make a decision, whether this is a sellable business, whether you want to sell it, or whether you decide to either turn it over to a family member or run it with the second in command. So step 1, identify what's most important to you. Number 2, value your business. And with this, I'm going to say determine its market ability. And think about, what do you have to offer? Is it truly a sellable business? And what is it really worth? And then number 3, evaluate your tax consequences. Now this one, I'm going to tell you real quick that you're going to want to talk to somebody smarter than this guy. I know a little bit about the tax side. I know much more about the operations of both sides of this business. But when it comes to this, evaluate the tax consequences, because most tax minimizing strategies take years to fully implement, and it's often linked to the person you are transferring the business to. So hopefully just with that little 3-step process there can help you determine what's best for you. But unfortunately, I have a couple facts I need to share with you. And this, so far, it's taken me 21 years of working with business owners to learn this. But many automotive repair businesses are never bought or sold or successfully transitioned to new leadership. That's because the founders fail to focus on what builds true market value or a duplicatable model. What do I mean about a duplicatable model? How many of you would like to open more locations? And I'm hoping some of you really do, because the cool part about what we're talking about and the cool part about getting ready for succession planning, this really affords you to put yourself in a position to either sell it, turn it over to that second in command, or open more shops, open more businesses, build the model you want to duplicate. However, as we know all too well as some of you know this, the owner is typically working in the business instead of working on the business, which results in the business becoming too dependent on the owner. The owner is the subject matter expert that everyone, including customers, rely on. And I hope that makes a lot of sense. Now, to build a sustainable, expandable, and sellable business, you should focus on these value-creating activities. First, create a repeatable, consistent service offering that doesn't rely on you, the owner. Generate reoccurring revenue, positive cash flow, and strong profit margins with strong marketing plans and sales processes. Systematize your processes and procedures to ensure predictable and repeatable results. Now, for my friends out here in the collision industry, I'm going to tell you right here with this one, systemize your processes and procedures. I'm going to tell you that you guys are much further ahead than us on the mechanical side. And I'm going to pick on all of your repair procedures because of certifications, depending on insurance programs and manufacturers, OEM repair procedures. You folks are very, very good at documenting processes and procedures from the repairs. But how about everything else that goes on in your business? Administrative, bookkeeping, front office type processes. Build and retain a cohesive, top talented team with strong fundamentals and an extraordinary culture. And groom the leader who will sustain your business if you disappear suddenly, your second in command. And this is what ATI does for a living. We help shop owners find time and money in their business, because what can you do with time and money? Anything you want. But this is what we're also going to hear talk about today, helping with these items right here to help get you in a better position to exit your business. So with that said, let's talk about getting the financials together. And yes, you're going to need some paperwork for this process. And it's going to be business tax returns, financial statements, and I'm a big believer in projecting business. I'm a big believer in business growth, year-over-year growth. So I am going to talk about 5-year projections, and hopefully you see the value and why I would say it and how does it add value to your business. But first, tax returns, yep, the last 3 years. I'm going to demonstrate what a business valuation kind of looks like. And there's a couple of different schools of thought on this, but most of those require 3 years of data, and the business is worth an average of those 3 years of data. But the last 3 years of your business tax returns, and when it comes to the tax returns and when it comes to P&Ls, suggestion, get all the toys out. Now, I know you've heard from either friends in the industry, whether from accountants or even some consultants, because I know I would have said this 10 years ago. You are allowed to use your business or run some of your lifestyle through the business. It's a benefit of being a business owner. However, what I did learn, speaking with some accountants and people smarter than myself, when it comes to business valuations, as you try to bury the cars, the toys, the boats, the condo, all that stuff in the P&L, it really reduces the value of the business. And big picture, it is not worth those couple $1,000s you would have paid in taxes. So I'm a believer in all toys removed. This is strictly what does it cost to open the business, run the business. And again, total transparency is going to be needed, or respected when it comes time to present the value of the business. I don't think you'd ever want to be in front of a potential buyer with them thinking, how much are you really hiding? So do yourself a favor. Get last 3 years business tax returns ready, or when you're getting ready for this, the last 3 years. Get all the toys removed. And again, focus on as clean P&Ls as possible. And talk to your accountant, see what their thoughts are. You are going to need your financial statements again, the last 3 years, business and personal financial statements, P&Ls and balance sheets. And again, 5-year projections. With that, your first year, and some of you may be familiar with this term, some of you may not. What's your win number? When you start with building out your 5-year projections or your projections for growth, identify what is your win number. And a win number to me is basically, where does your business need to be in sales and gross profit dollars, as well as net, of course, for you to really make the kind of money you want to make. To me, that's why it's called a win number, not a break-even number. And then from that first year, what's your win? Annual growth projections, year over year over year. And again, with growth projections, a lot of people use a percentage increase, and that's cool. And a lot of people think 5 and 10% growth. You decide what's best for you, but project growth and build a plan to match. And what I mean by build a plan to match is, as you project sales, how many cars are you going to need to deliver each week, month, or a year to hit that? At what average estimate sold? As well as what kind of a staffing model are you going to need? How many body technicians? How many apprentices? How many painters? How many estimators is it going to take to live up to those projections? Now here, let's just stop a minute. What does projections have to do anything with succession planning? Well, twofold. Remember, I talked about getting your business ready, getting your business in a position to run without you, but you also need to think about creating confidence in your second in command on how you've grown the business and how you're going to continue to grow. And a potential buyer not only wants that same confidence, but would you agree with me that a smart buyer is going to be looking for a business that's going this way? Increasing sales, increasing revenue, increasing gross, increasing net profit. Because true entrepreneurs or business buyers are looking for two big things. First and foremost, they're looking for a return on their investment in about 3 to 5 years. And they're looking to increase that bottom line from day one. Show them how to do it and show them how you do it. And I hope that makes a lot of sense. And then I'd also build out or figure out, what is your shop's capacity? What is your crew's capacity in potential sales, gross profit dollars, and net? And then I would do some math to determine how efficient we are. How efficient is my current team? How efficient am I with my shop? Because one, of course, you want to maximize workspace or maximize revenue out of the workspace. But again, a potential buyer is looking for, how much room do I have to grow this business? So there's the kind of documents you're going to need to be able to put the best foot forward and get your best presentation on the table to a potential buyer. Now, business valuation. We're going to talk briefly about business evaluation and just somewhat of a model that the school of thought that ATI goes with for now. But I am a big believer in having a business valuation completed on your business. Does a lot of positive things for the owner. And I'm talking about not at time of sale, or not only when you're ready to sell, get a valuation. I'm talking about now, a couple years prior, because there's a few things you're going to learn. One is, it's going to give you a baseline of the value. It's going to give you a rough idea, well, pretty darn good idea, what your business is worth. Once you know that and see how they value the business, it's going to tell you, where do you really need to be to get the kind of money out of the business that you're looking for. Two, it brings missing pieces in the business to the surface. Now, I went through a process a couple years back as ATI, the Automotive Training Institute, transitioned and was acquired by a company called Driven Brands. Now, the only real point that I had in any of that was demonstrating what we do, but I did watch as this process was being put together, the pieces that were missing in the business. And then, of course, the founder and the CEO of the company and president of the company put those pieces in place over a couple years. And this was prior to the true acquisition. But in my humble opinion, once they got those pieces in place, it increased the value and made it easier for a buyer to purchase. But it'll help you identify what do you have to do, where does it have to be to get the kind of money you really want? Because I can promise you this, your business may not be worth the $1 million that everybody thinks it is. And unfortunately, when I watch members look at and we do a rough business valuation and they truly see what that business is worth, unfortunately, I watch some of these folks kind of turn green. You can see it in their face that, well, I had no idea, especially when maybe they weren't forward thinking enough and thinking about retirement plan, thinking that the sale of the business was going to take them to the promised land. Unfortunately, I can promise you that's probably not going to happen. So it'll give you a baseline value and where do you need to be to get the kind of money you want. It'll help you identify, do you have all the right pieces in place? It's going to help you identify and or see what's involved in selling a business while preparing for that valuation. It also allows you to start crafting your story. And when I'm talking about crafting a story, I'm talking about putting your sales presentation together, similar to what I'm doing now, because you're going to have to sell the business to a potential buyer. But it allows you to get your story together for the bank, a buyer, a partner, or anyone that may be interested in investing in the business. Now, again, there's a couple different schools of thought when it comes to valuing a business. Now, I want to share with you how businesses are valuated in the automotive repair and service side, mechanical and collision, unlike some other industries. Because some industries, their business or the sale of the price is based off of total sales volume times a multiplier. Ours isn't. Our industry is based off of EBITDA times multipliers. And when I say EBITDA, yes, interest, depreciation, amortization, any of the toys back, one-time expenses, discretionary net, all of that equals owner's cash. So interest expenses, of course, that's paper write-off. Depreciation, amortization, that's all paper write-off. And again, talk to your accountant about these, not me. But getting the toys out of the business helps some clarity because you got a couple things on this list. Toys and discretionary net. Discretionary net, things like your cell phone, things like maybe even your life insurance, health insurance, maybe your car payments or your fuel you put through the car. Now, you really can't use that based in value because not everybody believes in that. And even the fact that some even want to do that themselves when they take over the business. So you can't always count on that. But one-time expenses could be replacing a roof, an addition maybe you put on, or purchased equipment that you're probably not going to do again for a very long time. But looking at a P&L, it starts again from the net operating profit. And if you're not doing this today, I'd highly recommend doing so. Your role as either owner, manager, or bookkeeper, those items need to be expensed on the P&L. Because when it comes to look at a potential business or buy a business, if they are not expensed, a potential buyer is thinking in their head, what is this going to cost to replace those people? And you can bet that comes off of the sale price. But the value of business in our world, they're looking at net plus interest, depreciation, amortization, the one-time expenses, some discretionary net to equal owner's cash. And they're going to take the average of the last 3 years of the money you took out of your business, multiply that times anywhere between 2 and 3 to equal a total sale price. And I hope that makes sense. And God, I hope that did not offend or upset anybody, but unfortunately, that's the reality. And please also, I hear this all the time, and less today than ever, but over the years I've heard that's not my real numbers. That's not what I really do. Guess what? In the eyes of it needs to be black and white, and that's how they're going to create the value of the business. Now, something else I need to share with you here is this part. If you are playing the role of an estimator or a production manager, do yourself a favor, start growing the business now to get you in a position that you're not. Because the further removed from the operations of the business you are as a business owner, increases the value of the business. Because again, what's a true entrepreneur looking for, or a person that's going to buy a business? They're looking for a business. They're not looking for a job. And any thoughts of adding people back as in a manager, advisor, or estimator, or anything of that nature, they're going to deduct that from owner's cash and then multiply it times 2, a lesser number. So I hope that makes sense and gives you a rough ballpark on what your business is worth. But as I said earlier, highly recommend getting a true business valuation done. But you also got to keep this in mind when you're thinking about your financial objectives. That sale price does not equal walk away money, and I think you know that. Because once that sale price is determined and or that business is sold, money such as the broker, any debt still that needs to be paid, and yes, that's typically going to be parts vendors, leases, or mortgage and stuff like that you still may have, and whatever the case might be in your world, there's going to be some debt. And then, of course, you've all heard the painful term, capital gains. Well, unfortunately, that's real. And most will walk away from settlement with roughly 60% or roughly half of what they sold the business for. So when I had mentioned the sale of the business not taking someone to the promised land, unfortunately, this is why. And God, I hope this doesn't happen to you, but thus the reason we're sitting here today to help you truly get out of the business what you need. And I hope you took a couple notes on that. But the good news is I have a couple other ways to help you increase the value and or increase multipliers. Remember, the common multiplier in our world is owner's cash. What can you prove you walked out of the business with each year? And it's an average of the last 3 times the multiplier. Let's just go with 2.5 to 3. But here's some ways to help increase those multipliers. Number 1, brand and strong reputation. As in, strong local brand increases sale price. Now, of course, a strong brand, a strong reputation, and a growing business, to me, sells for more. And the thing that you have today, which may be good and or bad, a potential buyer can determine both brand and reputation within seconds of your business with things like this. We can call this Google. We can call this social media. They can just do some quick homework on your business. Look at Google reviews. They can look at your reputation online quickly. And the better that is, the bigger value of the business. Number 2, location and market. Growing populations, higher socioeconomic areas, as in higher growth in income, higher growth in economic and social environments, and more people in the area typically attract more. And of course, larger potential markets increase the value. And we have really seen all 3 of these right here. The population, socioeconomic. And yes, I really did have to look that up the first time I saw it. And large potential markets. We've seen this more in the collision side than we have the mechanical. So some things to really think about here, ladies and gentlemen. Now, your management team. Again, I had mentioned a true buyer or a true business person looking to buy a business, not a job. This is one big thing they want. They want a solid management team in place, tenure, experience, and their performance in increased sales, increased profitability of the business. They want somebody there with tenure because they don't want to do it, and it's going to increase your value and hopefully help it sell quicker. your workforce and operational excellence, as in your playbook and your black book. Your playbook, all documented process, everything. Not only your OEM repair procedures, but how you do business day to day, all needs to be documented. Now, I make the joke about a playbook and in a big binder, and that's cool. But with today's world, with things like Zoom and video, this kind of stuff can be all on video, parked in the cloud or somewhere back at home, but it doesn't have to be in a book. And I know you know that. But this black book thing, this is about documenting all your relationships. Now, I mentioned black book just because I'm a little older, and I remember back in the day where you'd write down ladies' phone numbers and a little bit about the relationships you may have with them, as in the little black book. And I know some of you gentlemen out there do the same. Document all your relationships in business, all your parts vendors, your paint supply, your equipment. Document all that. It's not something you keep in the head. Make it easy for someone else. Remember, you're trying to put yourself in a position where your business runs without you. I'm a believer in organizational charts and what your staffing and hiring processes look like. And we'll talk about that in just a little bit. Number 5, your facility and equipment. Big impact to the sale price of the business. Fresh, new, cleaned operating sells for more. Unfortunately, when it looks a little dilapidated, dust sitting on it, doesn't look like it works as well as it should, are going to cost you. And here's the big one. Demonstrate your opportunity for growth. The more opportunity for growth, probably going to sell a little bit more and definitely sell a lot quicker. So hopefully that gave you a little insight on how do they value a business. A couple ways to help increase the values, not only talking about the options that you have. But now let's talk about getting the business ready for the planned or the unplanned exit, now that you know what your options look like. Now, we're going to start with shoring up the future. And when I say shoring up the future, the goal of shoring up the future is to get your business in a position to run effectively without you, the subject matter expert. And shoring, and I know some of you might spell that a little differently, but I look at it as I'm making sure everything is going to be okay when I exit my business. And we're going to talk about this from a people perspective. We're going to talk about this from a sales and financial perspective, as well as continuity. So let's start with people. Step 1. And for those of you that maybe don't find your role as sexy as you used to, or a little overwhelmed, or you're just looking to get some free time for your business, take notes on this subject. Redefine your role. Now, one big thing, and I've watched this happen for years, and most of us guys, we just go into the business and do. Why? Because that's what we do. We just do it. You have nothing documented. You have nothing written down. You don't have a job description or a list of responsibilities. So if that's the scenario you're in, how are you going to give a potential new leader and or buyer or ownership in the business? How is that going to create any confidence on that, how to run the business without you? So take a couple notes, and we're going to call this cloning yourself. Step 1, make your list. Make your list of what you do, as in a little notebook, little notepad. And this might be old school or do it digital. Who knows? Who cares? But document it. Every time you touch something, write it down. Every time you do something, write it down. And we're looking for all your daily, all your weekly, all your monthly touches or responsibilities you have in the business. So make your list. And then from this list, I'm going to ask you to circle the things that you want to keep, whether it's because you have to do it or because you want to do it, and that's okay. But I'd ask you to think about, what is your head worth? And in some cases, a lot of us are we're doing things that a much lesser expensive head could be doing. So first, make your list, again, daily, weekly, monthly, quarterly, annually. Create your list, categorize, again, whether it's daily, weekly, monthly, and then circle what you want to keep. And the cool thing, just from this list and what you want to keep, you've now created 2 lists of responsibilities. As in the things are circled are your responsibilities. Things you did not circle are things that most likely are going to be set aside for either your second in command or a manager. Or in some cases, you're going to find some of this could have went down to maybe a technician or somebody else in the mix, maybe a painter. Who knows? Who cares for this exercise? But make the list, circle what you want to keep, create 2 lists of responsibilities. And from this list of responsibilities, you've also now create 2 job descriptions, one for you, one for a second in command. And I hope that makes sense. And I just want to check right now is, do we have any questions about anything so far? Not seeing anything pop up, so I'm going to move on. And as Pete says, feel free to ask questions. All right. The next step in shoring up the future of people is identify your successor. Now, I know this is a little bit different, but owner or second in command, identify. Am I looking to sell my business? Or am I looking to turn this over to a second in command and or family member? So identify who is that person going to be. And then determine, is this the right fit for the business? And we'll talk about that briefly at the end, what the goods and bads of a right fit. But the wrong fit, not good. But then once you've determined who that person's going to be, and if this is definitely a second in command, I'm going to suggest testing them. And it could be just a couple things that I'm going to ask you to think about. One, business acumen. Do they have the right head for business? Because I'm a believer in there's people that have a business head and there's people that have an employee head. But you need to determine if you're second in command, do they have the right head for business? And then I'm going to ask you to think about even personality testing, personality profile, like a Wonderlic or a Briggs-Myers type test. Do they have the right personality traits to drive a business? Again, some do, some don't. But also think about what this, when it comes to some of these competencies and or personality traits, yes, strengths and weaknesses, learn from your weaknesses, how do you adjust? But core competencies, when you think about the core competencies needed for your business, does your second in command have those core competencies? And that's either a yes or no. With the yes is cool, with the no, something to think about. Are those competencies, are they born or are they trained? But then also with this one, you also need to determine how much or what kind of role do you want to continue to play? And are you looking for a manager or a leader? And that all really depends on the role you're going to play and who's going to be there to create the vision for the company. So test them and determine what is your mentoring process. How are you going to groom that person? For a potential owner, how you built it, how you built the business to where it is and where you want to take it, especially if you're holding paper. And how long are you going to be there to help them? And this could be a weekly event, this could be daily, and this could be 3 months, 6 months, 12 or more. Again, I think it has a lot to do with any potential, the fact that as business, you may be holding some of the paper on this is going to help you determine what some of that should look like. But how are you going to help groom a potential buyer? Second in command, how to grow the business and how long. So determine your mentoring process. So shoring up the future at first, to redefine your role, identify your successor, determine your mentoring process. Now here's something that some people believe in, not all, but create an organizational chart for your business. And I know some of you are thinking, why? Create the org chart. The org charts usually demonstrate who answers to whom and who's responsible for who. Again, confidence in a potential buyer. But what are the roles needed for the shop to perform? I'm a believer in with those roles. What are the skills and competencies needed, as well as who currently fills those roles? And when you build out your 5-year projections, any future roles that are going to be needed. Again, confidence in a buyer that they can run this business and grow the business the same way that you have. Job descriptions and a plan for each. Job descriptions. How many of you have job descriptions? My guess is yes. Are they current? Do they meet today's generation of workforce? And do they meet today's working environment? But you need to think about what is a new job description for the second in command, as we spoke about on a previous slide. Any estimators and managers, as well as technicians. Job descriptions for all. And the plan for each. And when I say the plan for each, what's your development plan for each? I'm hoping you have some type of required training for each one of the roles in your shop to help make your people better, because that's one of the biggest roles that from you as a leader, to make your people better. And I am a believer in making sure everybody understands the metrics for performance. Management and estimators. Where does the business need to be in sales and profits and average estimate sold and the number of cars delivered per week, month, or year to get where you need to grow? With technicians, what is the production needed in either build hours or sales? And I don't care how you measure that, but I'm a believer in they need to know the expectation. And I'm a believer in you should track it, of course. So once these metrics of performance have been created, set the expectations and begin training. Now let's talk about showing up the future from a sales and a financial perspective. Design budgets and a bill pay schedule. Budgets for sales. Where do I need to be this year? Where do I need to be in 2022? Or better yet, where do you want to be in 2022? Where do you want to be in 2023? And so on. 5-year projections. And real quick, when it comes to 5-year projections, the biggest reason most people don't build projections is fear of failure. Politely, I'm going to say, get over yourself. Get over it. And think about this. If you're here and you project business to here and you only come up here, who wins? Everybody wins. So design the budgets, lay out what your budget each year is for sales. What's the plan? Car count, estimate sold, how many players, and start working the plan. Budgets for wages. What is it going to cost? What can your business model afford as far as budgets for wages and budgets for purchasing? And again, please create some type of a bill pay schedule for expenses. Now, hopefully you guys have bookkeepers. But if that bookkeeper is a spouse that plans on exiting the business with you, document all this stuff. Who needs to be paid? When does it get paid? What is the actual dollar amount? Painfully enough, we've witnessed this in our side at the Automotive Training Institute. And these are typically in unplanned exits, as in Pa, from a mom and pop shop. Pop passes. Sad to say, but it happens all the time. Unfortunately, nobody else understood what bills needed to get paid but Pop. If they're gone, those bills don't get paid. And you know what happens to a business when bills don't get paid? They stop doing business. So design your budgets. Identify a second check signer. And that's pretty self-explanatory. Somebody other than you needs to be able to write a check. And document all critical banking information. Now, earlier I talked about the black book and documenting your business relationships. I'm a believer in you need one for the business, as in your paint supply company, your parts vendors and stuff like that, that people at the shop know where to go to look up a phone number and make some phone calls. But I think somebody back at home in a personal book needs to have things like the banking information. Where do you park your money? And through whom do you pay your bills? And those things should include bank location and personal contact. Who is the person you make, or what is your face and voice you deal with at that company? Account names and numbers, and any sign-on information for online banking. So document all critical information. Critical payroll information. Again, maybe not a shop book, a personal book, but all employees and their compensation plans. Payroll company and contact information. Any state and federal ID numbers, and any unemployment or the state and unemployment tax ID numbers. Again, get this business in a position to run without you. List of all preferred vendors. Everybody you do business with. The account rep, contact info, account numbers, limits and terms, usernames and passwords. And unfortunately, you guys know what time of year it is. We're coming up to the end of the year, and where did 2021 go to? But there's going to be a time that your business is going to have to pay its taxes or file your returns. Somebody other than you and your accountant need to know what this looks like. And honestly, somebody other than you needs to know who your accountant really is. But the accountant and appropriate documents, monthly, quarterly, year-end on a calendar, and what is the process on how this is done. So hopefully those items make sense. And then measure business performance. At ATI, God knows how many key performance indicators we really have. Collision side, you guys have several. On the mechanical side, we have several. But it could be as much as 50, 60, 70 or more. But I'd ask you to identify all key performance indicators in the business. Vehicle count, cycle time, average estimate, estimate paid, and so on and so on. Document all that, or what are those measurements, and what does good look like, as in your business projections. Set staff expectations and sales management. What are your 5-year projections? Sorry if you're getting tired of hearing that, but I'm just a huge believer in business growth, and to grow a business, you need a plan. And constantly focus on business improvement. Please remember that a second in command, even taking over the business, wants to have confidence in the fact that this business is going this way, as in going up in revenue, GP dollars and net. But don't you think a potential buyer is going to want to see the same? Marketing plan. Yes, a marketing plan. Create a marketing plan for the business if you don't already have one. But this marketing plan also needs to mimic your growth projections. And a good marketing plan, in my humble opinion, the geographics, demographics, and psychographics of your customers. Your marketing plan should have daily, weekly, monthly, quarterly, and yearly events. And it should be measured based on response rates, dollars spent per, and so on. And up until a couple years ago, the mechanical side of the industry I know very well, and I've understood marketing plans for a long time. The collision side of the business, I would have never thought on how to focus on creating a marketing plan for collision business. Here I am thinking, no, people wreck cars, they come to a shop. However, I met two people. One of them, gentleman's name is Keith Manich, that runs the collision division for the Automotive Training Institute. And then a young lady by the name of Jackie Ferrier. I didn't think about marketing plans on the collision side until I met both of those people. They truly showed me how a good marketing plan for the collision side is much more than hoping the insurance company sends me cars. So you need to create a solid marketing plan as part of a continuity plan to help keep the cars coming and to help match your projections. And I'm also going to ask you to document all business debt and lines of credit, just in case of an unplanned exit. Loans, leases, credit cards, everything. Total payments, total amount due, or when is it due, and who the company is, contact information, and any sign-on information for online banking. So we got some documentation to do if you don't have this already done. Couple last others. Business utility bills. Come on, you know this. sure somebody other than you is aware of when bills need to be paid. And then, of course, property and insurance. And again, for you folks on the collision side, I think you guys understand as far as everything about business insurance information, EPA, but any other investment properties or your property mortgage company, and somebody else needs to know who to call if. But that's shoring up the future from a sales and a financial perspective. Let's talk about your continuity plan. And a continuity plan is exactly that. What will keep business going when some type of a disruptive incident hits you? Disruptive incidents could be, I just lost an estimator, or I lost a painter. Unfortunate, but we know it happens. Or a piece of equipment went down. Do people know what to do in a case like that? And unfortunately, if they're not sure what to do, they're always calling you, the subject matter expert. Get this place built for speed. And here I'm going to talk about process and procedures. Step-by-step instructions for each core system and each service you offer. But basically, and as I said in the beginning, you folks on the collision side, and yes, I'm very impressed that everything is documented. Everything. All your OEM repair procedures, your paint process, all that's documented. And I understand why. And I give you guys a lot of credit for doing that, because on my side of the house, that's not so much. But I'm talking about everything you do, written process. Also parked somewhere that somebody knows where to go in case of a disruptive incident. And I hope that makes sense. And I'm a big believer in a process-dependent business, not people-dependent business. And we really don't have a whole lot of time to go through all of what that means. But here's just a brief little thing to think about. How many of you can remember a time that you had a particular player there at the business, a particular person there, and your business did great? We did this, we did that, we did this, we did that. And it was all good. However, you lost that person, and you no longer do this, you no longer do that, and business isn't as good. For how many of you does this sound familiar? To me, when it's not doing well as it used to, when that person was there, that was a people-dependent business. Again, a potential buyer's looking for a turnkey, well-oiled machine, thus continuity plan. Document all processes and procedures. To me, this helps create better hires and better orientation and onboarding, better training, knowing exactly who does each one of those roles. Each role has a particular processes that are related to that role. So better training, better quality control, and much easier for potential player to step in when somebody's not there, because they know what to do, when to do it, and how to do it. And again, document your recruiting process. How do you help attract new people? Or how do you grow new people? Whether you have a technician apprentice program built in, and how do you train people, or how do you recruit? I want documented what your hiring and orientation process looks like, what your training plan looks like, and the training plan for managers, estimators, and all technicians. So that is shoring up the future with people, sales, financial, and continuity. Now, earlier I mentioned shifts in business and giving people confidence in what they're about to buy, because how many of our businesses have gone through the ups and downs? Unfortunately, it's going to happen. But the goal of shifts in business is to demonstrate how the business has performed over these last 3 or more years. How does it perform in sales, profit dollars, and customers? Now, shifts in business and things you need to ask yourself is, what changes, trends, or differences has the business experienced? Are your sales trending up or down? Are your gross profit dollars trending up or down? And here's what you're going to need for this. And 5-year forecast and budget. Your last 3 years worth of financial documents. Looking at monthly sales, monthly car count and average repair order, or amount sold per car, monthly gross profit margin, and dollars. And again, please keep in mind that the sexiest shops on the list of shops for sale, are very predictable, stable, and have year-over-year growth. And when it comes to a 5-year forecast and projection, what is a potential buyer looking for? Not only, are you on track? Are you on track for your projections? And again, we don't have to be able to actually hit every one. It's just the closer you get to the better. You are demonstrating a growing business. And again, a healthy business grows every year. So looking at monthly sales, we're looking at, is there year-over-year growth? December of 22, or December of 21, is it taller than December of 20? And was December of 20 taller than 19, and so on? I think you guys know what I'm talking about here. But when it comes to demonstrating where your business has been or creating your presentation, the shifts in business, this is about preparing a presentation to demonstrate to someone. Because again, a smart buyer, we're looking at the last 3 years of P&Ls, if there really was downward trends at all anywhere, they're going to pick up on that. The best advice is be prepared to demonstrate. Do not try to hide that. That creates other questions. Demonstrating what happened and how you came out of that and how you continued to grow, again, gives somebody a lot of confidence they can do the same. And I hope that part makes sense. But now, what are you really selling? With a large portion of the sale price of the business coming from goodwill, this is your chance to demonstrate the value of the business. Now, just in case somebody might be wondering what goodwill is. Earlier, we talked about owners' cash out of the business. How much money did you take out of the business annually? And they're going to take the average of the last 3 years and hit that with a multiplier. That creates a sale price of the business. However, when it comes time for settlement, when it comes down to who's paying taxes on the sale of this business, this is going to be broken down. That sale price will be broken down into assets and goodwill. Assets are truly the dollars of what the value of equipment, what's the value of your people and stuff like that. What is that worth? Customer list. And really, customers lists aren't as valuable as a lot of people think. And the difference from that sale price minus assets equals goodwill. And I am a believer in we have the ability to influence goodwill if we're willing to do the work. And those were those other 6 ways of increasing multipliers, or all the stuff we've been talking about for the last hour. But you need to ask yourself, and a business buyer is going to ask the same thing. Are you selling a customer list equipment and recurring revenue? Or are you selling a well-oiled machine with huge potential for a return on investment? The goal of what are you really selling is to demonstrate the value of the business and opportunity for a potential buyer. Again, create your sales presentation, create your pitch book, create your pitch video, your PowerPoint, just like this. I wanted to include your workforce, your management team, and opportunity for growth. And when it comes time for workforce, your org chart and your 5-year plan. This is who our people are, and this is how we're going to grow our business. I love including tenure because just like you, when you're looking to hire people, you're looking for lifers and long-term players. So is a potential buyer. What are the skills and core competencies needed for each role? Why? Because ultimately somebody's going to may have to replace those people or add people with your growth plan. Especially with their estimators and your managers, performance versus expectations. Again, proven performance adds value. And trust me, this also, proven performance of management team, if they happen to be part of a buyout, they are more likely to get financed from a bank because they already have experience running that business. And I hope that made a lot of sense. But what's your training and development process? What's your recruiting and hiring process? When it comes to your management team, again, the org chart, 5-year, 10-year, core competencies, performance and training and development process, and recruiting and hiring process. So you need to document all of that in your pitch about your players, about your people, and your future players. Your opportunity for growth. Tired of hearing it, I know, but unfortunately, get used to it. Your team's capacity. What was your team built to do if hitting on all 8 cylinders? What was your shop built to do? Days, brick and mortar. How many dollars was that square footage built to produce? And again, your sales management process. And to me, I'm a big believer in repair order audits, as in digging through the tickets, digging through my estimates, digging through the finals. You're just going to learn a lot about your business. And again, what's your marketing plan and how much market share have you captured? Now, again, with this marketing plan and our market share captured, again, we're seeing more of this on the collision side, of course. But again, when you have a bigger chance to grow the market or for a buyer to capture a bigger market share, your business could be worth more. But now, last but not least, it's the right fit for your business. And I think I'm preaching to the choir here, but what does your business need from its next leader? And that's something probably you as a business owner probably know better than anybody, but does your business have a similar vision? Does your buyer have a similar vision? Does your second in command have a similar vision? Because poor fits drain resources, time, and morale. Bad fits lead to disaster for everyone, accompanied by loss of revenue, customers, and employees and time. And if not the right buyer, you're willing to walk away. And then you need to ask yourself something that for any of you that have a player in your business now that you feel may be its next leader, as in a second in command. 3 questions I think you should ask yourself. Why are they not in place today? And if you have that person in mind and you think they might be great at running the business next, your next leader, start creating your list, as we talked about before, and developing a list of responsibilities for yourself and a second in command, as well as the job descriptions. Number 2, what have you done to train one? And if you know who that person is, you've got the list created, start training. For those lists of responsibilities, you're going to start to move to them. And you also need to ask yourself, if you have that person, what have you done to hold back that estimator, advisor, or manager? So, ladies and gentlemen, that's my safe succession planning and what's your end game. And I hope you got a lot of information on the options that you have, getting your financials ready, why shoring up the future is important, what the shifts in business and how you're going to demonstrate that to a potential buyer, and what are you really selling, and why that right fit is so important. So I do thank you all very, very much for hanging out with me for the last hour and 10 minutes. Again, my name is Bryan Stasch. If you have any questions, comments, or concerns, or you want to hear more about what I've mentioned, there's my email, there's my cell phone, and that's my company, the Automotive Training Institute. So, Pete, back to you, sir.
All right, Bryan, thanks a lot, man. I appreciate it. I'm going to leave that up on the screen for just a moment so everybody who wants to get that can get that information down. We've also put it in the comments. And I appreciate everyone for coming out for this episode today. It's always fun to try out new things. I hope that you enjoyed it as much as I did trying to present it to you. And again, Bryan, I want to thank you so much for taking your time to share that knowledge, with people who are watching today's presentation. I really do appreciate that.
My pleasure, Pete. And thank you for having me, sir.
All right, let's see if we can do this.